Yang Yi swept the surroundings with his gaze, and he noticed that there were Exalt Realm experts all around the ship. There were 4 at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm, a single 6th rank Exalt Realm expert, and the rest were 1st to 4th rank Exalt Realm experts. Moreover, there were 3 other ships on either side and behind the ship he was on, and there were countless Spirit Realm Profounders on these ships. Over 20 Exalt Realm experts, over 100 Spirit Realm experts. How do I flee from such a force? At this moment, a powerless feeling had arisen in Yang Ye's heart again. His enemies were too huge in number and too strong, and he was still too weak in the end. You refuse to take your own life? Then I won't hold back. Yuan Yen raised his right hand slowly, causing a wave of fluctuation to arise in space. Wait! Right at this moment, the young man by the veiled woman's side had suddenly stepped forward. Yang Yi glanced at the young man before he took a glance at the woman, and then he seemed to have thought of something, causing a wisp of a mysterious smile to immediately arise on the corners of his mouth. The veiled woman frowned and said, "What are you doing?" Yuan Yen said, "Young Master Yi, this is a matter between Yang Yi and us. I hope young Master Yi doesn't interfere." The young man smiled and said, "Don't worry, Senior. I have no intention to protect Yang Yi. It's just that I heard he's the Sword Emperor of this era, who possesses peerless attainments in the Sword Dao and the strongest amongst the sword cultivators of the younger generation. I, Xianxia, am not convinced of that at all. Since I've encountered him today, I intend to have a little competition with him. After all, he's going to die in a moment. So, I wouldn't have another chance if I were to miss this opportunity. Thus, I hope Senior can fulfill my wish. You intend to challenge Yang Yi?" Yuan Yen spoke with astonishment. The young man nodded and said, "Of course." Yuan Yen glanced at the young man. He knew that this fellow before him intended to use Yang Yi to make a name for himself. If he killed Yang Yi or defeated Yang Yi, then his reputation would definitely shock the entire Southern Territory and Ocean of Anarchy. However, could he defeat Yang Yi? In any case, Yuan Yen didn't believe that Yi Liangchen could. Because if Yang Yi was so easy to defeat, then the mortal emperor wouldn't have sent so many of them here. Yi Liangchen continued, "Senior, please give my Ocean of Clouds merchant group some face and fulfill this wish of mine. In any case, Yang Yi won't be able to escape regardless of whether I win or lose. Right?" Yuan Yen pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "Since young Master Yi is so confident, then please go ahead. However, I must warn young Master Yi that Yang Yi doesn't possess an undeserved reputation. So, I hope young Master Yi will be careful." "Thank you, Senior." Yi Liangchen nodded, and then he turned around to gaze at Yang Yi. Meanwhile, the veiled woman obstructed Yi Liangchen's path and said, "You've investigated him, and you are aware of his character. It's very likely that you'll die." Yi Liangchen rolled his eyes and said, "Big sister, do you have no confidence in your own younger brother? Just watch properly and see how I beat down this Sword Emperor." As he spoke, he turned around to gaze at Yang Yi. At the same time, a sword had appeared in his hand as he said, "Yang Yi, I've been wanting to fight you for a very long time, and I'm finally able to get my wish today. Come, show me your entire strength, and let I, Yi Liangchen, see how strong the so-called Sword Emperor is." Yang Yi said, "Do I have a choice? You don't. Ha ha." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Liangchen waved his sword lightly. In an instant, the ocean water in the surroundings of the ship started to roil, and then an enormous amount of water transformed into numerous waves that shot into the air. Heh! I never expected that the young master has actually succeeded in cultivating the billowing wave sword technique. After all, it's a mid-grade heaven rank sword technique. Young master, you can set your mind at rest now, right? The old man by the veiled woman's side said. Young master has already grasped 90% of this sword technique, and we're above the ocean now, so its might would be improved greatly. I think that even if young master is only a 7th rank spirit realm expert, his current attack is something that even ordinary Exalt realm experts wouldn't be able to resist. Let me see how that fellow Yang Yi deals with the young master's attack. The veiled woman didn't speak, and she just gazed at Yang Yi. At this moment, Xianxia's expression was very calm, and he didn't show any signs of executing a technique. However, the more Xianxia acted like that, the more uneasy she felt in her heart. Xianxia paid no attention to the might of Yi Liangqin's technique, and his gaze was just moving ceaselessly between the veiled woman and Yi Liangqin as if he was thinking about something. On the other hand, and Xiaonan's eyes glowed as she gazed at the waves that filled the air, and she frequently shot glances at Xianxia as well while excitement and curiosity filled her eyes. Billowing waves sword technique. Right at this moment, Yi Liangqin shouted as he spun his wrist, and then the countless waves shot violently towards Xianxia like torrents. Moreover, Yi Liangqin's figure flashed as he shot explosively towards Xianxia, while the sword in his hand carried an enormous torrent of its own. Xianxia shook his head lightly as he gazed at the torrents that covered the air. This sword technique was really not bad, and Yi Liangqin had trained well in it. Unfortunately, it wasn't enhanced by sword intent, and a sword technique without sword intent wasn't much of a threat to Xianxia. A wisp of a strange smile arose on the corners of Yi Liangqin's mouth when he noticed that Xianxia had still not attacked. In the next moment, a wisp of bright light flashed in Yi Liangqin's eyes as his speed rose explosively and instantly arrived in front of Xianxia. At the same time, an invisible force surged explosively from within him and enveloped Xianxia. It was sword intent. 7th level sword intent. The spectators in the surroundings were shocked. They hadn't expected that this fellow who looked really unreliable would actually possess 7th level sword intent. Moreover, they hadn't expected that this fellow who acted like an idiot would have actually been putting on a show of weakness to his enemy. It was especially so for the veiled woman and the others. They were extremely surprised right now because Yi Liangqin only possessed 6th level sword intent in the past, yet now. In other words, he had been constantly concealing his strength. The veiled woman revealed a wisp of a smile when she thought of this. Xianxia was slightly surprised as well. 7th level sword intent. This fellow is a genius in the sword Dao just like Lu Jianyao. But so long as it wasn't 8th level sword intent which could take material form, then it was impossible for it to be a threat against him. Xianxia stopped hesitating and acted decisively. A strand of red light shot into the sky from him, and a bang resounded when it collided with the torrents before water splashed throughout the surroundings. 8th level sword intent. Yi Liangqin's pupils constricted. He knew that Xianxia possessed 8th level sword intent, but he hadn't expected that it would be so formidable to the point it was actually countless times stronger than 7th level sword intent. Yi Liangqin suppressed the shock in his heart before he spun his wrist again, and another torrent formed on his sword as it slashed down towards Xianxia. Right at this moment, Yi Liangqin noticed to his astonishment that Xianxia had suddenly vanished. His expression changed drastically and was just about to dodge. Unfortunately, it was still too late. Xianxia had already appeared behind him and a sword was placed against the back of his neck. Dejection covered Yi Liangqin's face as he'd lost just like that. Everyone in the surroundings were dumbstruck. I, Yi Liangqin, am not convinced of my loss. Shut up. Xianxia turned to look at the veiled woman and said, "Activate the offensive formation and blast all of these fellows into bits." Everyone was stunned by this. Xianxia swung his sword, and then a hole appeared on Yi Liangqin's back, causing him to instantly break out with cold sweat. However, Yi Liangqin didn't make a sound. At this moment, he understood that he was a hostage. Xianxia gazed at the veiled woman as he moved his hand again, and then another hole appeared on Yi Liangqin's body. He said, "If you still refuse to activate the formation, then the next swing of my sword will separate his head from his body." The veiled woman recovered from her shock, and her expression was slightly unsightly. How could she not understand that Xianxia was using her younger brother to threaten her? And he wanted her to use the ship's formations and the forces of her merchant group to help him. Attack! Yuan Yen and the others stopped watching, and all of them were prepared to attack. Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly while killing intent flashed through his eyes. He was just about to kill Yi Liangqin when the veiled woman suddenly shouted, "Activate the formations. Everyone, do your best and stop them." Even though she wished for nothing more than to kill Xianxia, she had no choice but to do as Xianxia said, because she firmly believed that her younger brother would definitely lose his head if she continued to hesitate. The others behind her hesitated slightly upon hearing her, but they didn't dare continue when they saw her fierce gaze. The profound energy within their bodies surged madly into the talisman markings around the ship. In an instant, numerous dazzling rays of light shot into the sky. The expressions on the faces of Yuan Yen and the others changed violently. They didn't dare go head-on against these rays of light, and they just dodged successively and retreated to a distance of over 300 m. On the other hand, the winged shark hadn't been able to retreat in time and was struck by a few rays of light, causing it to be immediately blasted into pieces. Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene because he'd made the right bet. "Young Miss Yi, what are you doing?" Yuan Yen had a very unsightly expression on his face. If he knew this would happen, then he would have never agreed to the one-on-one battle between Yang Yi and Yi Liangchen. The veiled woman paid no attention to Yuan Yen. She just waved her hand and 100 top-grade energy stones fell into some of the slots around the deck. In an instant, a barrier of light covered the entire ship. Forward at full speed, the veiled woman shouted. As soon as she spoke, the ship was like an arrow that was released from a bow, and it instantly appeared 3 kilometers away. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched because he noticed that those 100 top-grade energy stones that she'd just placed into the slots had already transformed into a pile of ash in just this short moment of time. Fortunately, she withdrew another 100 of them to replace the last 100. Its consumption of energy stones was horrifying. Even Yang Yi felt that such consumption of energy stones hurt. Fortunately, it wasn't his energy stones that were being burnt away, as they watched the Ocean of Clouds merchant group's ship vanishing into the distance. Yuan Yen and the others had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces. They hadn't expected that something which had no risk of failure would actually turn out like this. Pursue them. These ships exhaust a huge amount of energy stones. They won't be able to hold on like that for long, said Yuan Yen in a deep voice. The others nodded, and then they tore space apart and chased after the ship. On the ship, those 4 Exalt Realm experts had surrounded Yang Yi. At this moment, all of them from the Ocean of Clouds merchant group were glaring angrily at Yang Yi. If Yi Liangchen wasn't in Yang Ye's hands, then they would have probably rushed him as a group. "Young Master Yang, can you let my younger brother go now?" said the veiled woman. Yang Yi glanced at the others in the surroundings and said, "Miss Yi, all of you would definitely attack me immediately if I were to let your younger brother go now, right? Moreover, do all of you think I'll be able to escape their pursuit even if all of you don't attack me? So, I hope that Miss Yi will be able to send me to a safe place." "Yang Yi, you're going too far." Yi Liangchen spoke furiously. "You caused this trouble yourself, so why should we wipe your ass for you? Aren't you very formidable? Go deal with it yourself." Hiss! Another hole appeared on Yi Liangchen's chest while a strand of blood sprayed out from it, and then his countenance turned slightly paler. "Yang Yi, I'm not convinced of my defeat. If you're so capable, then let me go, allow me to recuperate, and have a fair fight with me." Yi Liangchen spoke furiously. "I'll chop off the hand which you used to wield your sword if you don't shut up." Yang Yi glanced coldly at Yi Liangchen, and the latter instantly shut his mouth. Obviously, he didn't want to lose his hand. "Young Master Yang, our top-grade energy stones aren't sufficient to maintain such a speed until we arrive at the Central Territory. Moreover, this defensive formation on our ship utilizes 100 top-grade energy stones every 15 minutes. So, if you want to live, then it's best that you leave the ship right now. Perhaps you'll still have a chance at surviving in the boundless ocean with the strength you possess," said the veiled woman. Yang Yi shook his head and said, "Young Miss Yi, stop trying to deceive me. This ocean is practically boundless, and there are all sorts of mysterious oceanic creatures within it. I would definitely die if I left the ship. I have no choice but to ask Miss Yi to escort me to a safe place. I'm powerless to accomplish that." The veiled woman gazed at Yang Yi as she spoke these words. Yang Yi smiled while he placed his sword on Yi Liangchen's neck, and he said, "Miss Yi, you have them, don't you?" He naturally couldn't let Yi Liangchen go right now, because those fellows pursuing them and these fellows from the Ocean of Clouds merchant group would definitely not spare him once he did. Young Master Yang, while everyone says that you're ruthless and stop at nothing, I know that you differentiate clearly between kindness and enmity, and all those you killed were those who offended you first. But young Master Yang, my merchant group didn't offend you, right? Aren't your current actions a little immoral? Said the veiled woman. You didn't. Yang Yi smiled and said, Miss Yi, have you forgotten that it was your younger brother who attacked me first? Don't tell me that he didn't injure me. Everyone understands that the reason he didn't was because he doesn't possess sufficient strength. So, Miss Yi, please don't waste your breath. Otherwise, your younger brother will lose his head. The veiled woman said, Young Master Yi, a huge amount of top-grade energy stones is required to maintain the defensive and offensive formations in order to stop those Exalt Realm experts who are pursuing you. However, we don't have top-grade energy stones anymore. So, the defensive and offensive formations will be deactivated in around 7 minutes from now. Thus, if you really want to live, then it's best to leave this ship. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to help you even if you kill my younger brother. Yang Yi gazed at her for a short while, and he didn't kill Yi Liangchen. He knew that she wasn't lying. After all, not everyone was like him and used top-grade energy stones like they were just rocks. So, Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment before he waved his hand, and then 100 top-grade energy stones appeared before the veiled woman. He said, I'll supply the energy stones. Your only responsibility is to speed up and take me to the Central Territory. It's best that you don't try to play tricks. Otherwise, your younger brother will really die. A wisp of surprise flashed through her eyes because casually producing 100 top-grade energy stones wasn't something that just anyone could accomplish. He's actually that wealthy. This surprised her a little, and she had no other choice but to do as Yang Yi said. Can you let me go now? Yi Liangchen glared angrily at Yang Yi. He felt very aggrieved right now, because he hadn't expected that he would lose in the span of a single move. Just one move. That was such a blow to his confidence. Can you not ask such stupid questions? Asked Yang Yi. Yang Yi, you're going too far. Yi Liangchen was furious. Yang Yi pressed his sword against Yi Liangchen's neck and said, What are you going to do about it? You! Yi Liangchen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly turned around and gazed towards the distance, and he saw numerous figures following closely behind the ship. It was exactly Yuan Yen and the others. Yang Yi was quite furious when he saw them pursuing him without any intention to give up. He issued a command in his heart, and the immortal binding rope instantly wrapped itself around Yi Liangchen's neck. He held the rope in his left hand while he held Void Flash in his right, and then the profound energy within him started surging violently. Yang Yi, what are you doing? The corners of Yi Liangchen's mouth twitched. Truthfully speaking, he felt quite fearful of Yang Yi right now, because this fellow seemed to attack at the slightest hint of provocation, and Yang Yi clearly seemed like he was about to attack right now. At this moment, Yi Liangchen felt slight regret for being reluctant to accept the situation he was in, and he only hoped that Yang Yi wouldn't go berserk and behead him. Yang Yi, we've done as you said. What else do you want? The old man by the veiled woman's side spoke furiously. The veiled woman's eyes narrowed while killing intent surged with them. The others glared angrily at Yang Yi as well. Even Xiaonan was glaring fiercely at Yang Yi as she felt that Yang Yi was really going too far. Yang Yi paid no attention to them. After his profound energy surged madly into Void Flash, his 8th level sword intent attached itself to Void Flash as well. Yi Liangchen instantly felt a strand of heavy pressure when Yang Ye's sword intent appeared. Yi Liangchen was extremely shocked because he possessed 7th level sword intent, and it was only a level lower than Yang Ye's sword intent. Why is his sword intent so strong? In next to no time, Yang Ye's gaze locked onto a middle-aged man almost 300 m away who was a second-rank Exalt Realm expert. A wisp of a cold glow flashed in Yang Ye's eyes. In the next moment, he suddenly stabbed Void Flash forward. The tip of a sword suddenly appeared before the middle-aged man's throat, and his expression changed drastically. He wanted to evade it, but it was too late, and he could only activate his profound energy barrier to cover his throat. Hiss! The tip of the sword stabbed against his throat, and then it experienced no obstruction at all and directly pierced through the middle-aged man's throat. The middle-aged man's eyes opened wide and were filled with disbelief. Never had he imagined that he would actually die just like that. In next to no time, his corpse crashed down from midair. An Exalt Realm expert perished just like that? Everyone here was shocked, and they gazed at Yang Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Yi Liangchen shivered as he pointed a finger at Yang Yi. He wanted to say something but didn't say anything in the end, and only his eyes were filled with shock and fear. It wasn't just Yi Liangchen. Even the Veiled Woman and those other Exalt Realm experts from the merchant group had fear all over their faces. In the past, they'd merely heard that Yang Yi could surmount a realm of cultivation to kill Exalt Realm experts, but it was only rumors in the end, and they hadn't seen it for themselves. But they'd seen it for themselves now. An Exalt Realm expert had just died like that before their very eyes, and Yang Yi was only a second-rank Spirit Realm profounder. Would anyone in the Exalt Realm be able to stop him if he attains the Exalt Realm? Yuan Yen and the others had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces as well. They hadn't expected that Yang Yi would still be able to kill one of their companions at a time like this. At the same time, they felt deep fear in their hearts. This fellow is truly a monstrous genius. He's only at the second rank of the Spirit Realm. Wouldn't he be able to kill us like we are ants if he attains the Exalt Realm? No wonder the mortal emperor thinks so highly of him. Yuan Yen hesitated for a moment before he said in a low voice, "Attack! They should have no more top-grade energy stones to activate the offensive formations. Let's attack together and destroy the defensive barrier. We can't allow him to survive no matter what." The others nodded, and then they charged towards the ship. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched when he saw so many Exalt Realm experts charging towards them, and then he turned to gaze at the Veiled Woman and said, "Activate the offensive formations. I have no energy stones." The Veiled Woman had only spoken halfway when a ray of white light flashed, and then another 100 top-grade energy stones appeared in front of her. She took a deep glance at Yang Yi before she waved her hand and placed them into those slots on the deck. In an instant, countless rays of light shot into the air. Yuan Yen was astounded, and the expressions of the other Exalt Realm experts changed drastically. "Retreat! Quickly!" Yuan Yan's figure flashed and appeared 300 m away. The reactions of the others weren't any slower, and they hurriedly evaded it. However, the four fellows who were charging right at the front of the group hadn't been able to dodge in time, and they were struck by the rays of light and perished on the spot. How could they possibly have more top-grade energy stones? One of the Exalt Realm experts roared furiously. Yuan Yan's expression was slightly ferocious. He hadn't imagined that the Ocean of Clouds merchant group would still have more top-grade energy stones. Up until this very moment, it had at least spent 400 top-grade energy stones. 400 top-grade energy stones. The Ocean of Clouds merchant group is actually that rich to casually toss away 400 top-grade energy stones. After all, even he wasn't able to casually produce that many top-grade energy stones. The deaths of those four Exalt Realm experts caused Yuan Yen and the others to dare not attack rashly. Even though they were still 15 strong, they didn't want to use their lives as the wager and bet on whether the enemy still had top-grade energy stones. Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene, and then he snuck out an extreme-grade energy stone and placed it within his pocket to be absorbed. So long as he had the ship and top-grade energy stones, then those Exalt Realm experts wouldn't be a threat to him anymore. Conversely, he could even launch surprise attacks against them from time to time. In short, the current situation was much better than the situation he was in earlier. However, he still didn't dare allow himself to be careless, because the slightest bit of carelessness from him could mean that these fellows around him would launch a lethal strike against him. He hadn't forgotten that the reason they were helping him was because he had control over Yi Liangxin's fate. The Veiled Woman spoke abruptly. "Young Master Yang, let my younger brother go to recuperate. I'll be your hostage, all right?" "No," Yi Liangxin said. "Big sister, I heard that this fellow is a pervert. He'll definitely do something to you if you were to fall into his hands. Don't mind me. I can hold on. Isn't it just a few injuries from his sword? It's fine. The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched. A pervert? Who exactly is spoiling my reputation? The veiled woman glared fiercely at Yi Liangqin, and then she gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Yi waved his hand and withdrew an extreme-grade healing talisman before slapping it onto Yi Liangqin. Yi Liangqin was his protection charm right now, so he would naturally not allow Yi Liangqin to die. Surprise appeared on the veiled woman's face when she saw that extreme-grade healing talisman, and she took a long glance at Yang Yi. This sword emperor is really mysterious. Bang! Suddenly, an enormous pillar of water shot out from the surface of the ocean, and then a creature with the body of a person, the tail of a fish, and a trident in his hand appeared before them. The mermaid clan. Yang Yi noticed that the veiled woman and the others had unsightly expressions on their faces, while the Exalt Realm experts had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. The mermaid clan? What the fuck is that? Yang Yi frowned. The mermaid clan is one of the clans of oceanic creatures, and most of them live within the ocean anarchy. They're extremely hostile to humans because humans used to capture them as slaves. They usually don't show themselves above the ocean because they fear being captured. Once they do make an appearance above the ocean, then it represents that they were in a group. So, we're in danger. And Xiaonan had suddenly walked over to Yang Ye's side and spoken in a low voice. Sure enough, she just finished speaking when Yang Yi noticed numerous profounders from the mermaid clan in the ocean around them. Yang Yi noticed to his surprise that many were women. Extremely beautiful women. However, regardless of their gender, all their gazes carried hatred when they looked at the human profounders on the ship. What? Aren't you afraid that I, this great demon, would kill you? Yang Yi glanced at Xiaonan and spoke with an amused expression. And Xiaonan took a few steps back and seemed slightly vigilant against him when she heard that. Such actions made Yang Yi feel very speechless. Am I really that terrifying? Yang Yi paid no further attention to her, and he shot his gaze towards the distance. At this moment, their ship had been surrounded by the mermaid clan, and profounders from the mermaid clan filled their fields of vision. There were over 10,000 of them. Human, hand over our clansmen, otherwise, all of you'll be buried beneath the ocean today. The merman in the lead of the group pointed his trident at the ship as he spoke with a furious voice. A clansman of theirs? Yang Yi noticed that Yi Liangqin's expression grew slightly unusual. The veiled woman frowned and said, We haven't captured any of your clansmen. Have you made a mistake? Human, don't try to weasel your way out of it. I can sense her aura. She's on your ship. You've definitely utilized despicable methods to capture her. I'll give you a chance to hand her over, and we'll leave immediately. Otherwise, all of you'll meet your doom today. The merman spoke in a furious tone. The veiled woman was just about to speak when Yang Yi suddenly said, Perhaps you should ask your younger brother about it. Yi Liangqin's expression grew even more unsightly. The veiled woman's face fell when she noticed the change in his expression and said, What exactly is going on? Yi Liangqin remained silent. The veiled woman spoke angrily, Are you trying to get everyone killed? Yi Liangqin remained silent. Search the ship, said the veiled woman. A man by her side acknowledged her order and withdrew from here. Before long, the man appeared here once more. However, he had a woman in his hands, and the woman's lower body was covered by a black dress. But it wasn't difficult to discern that she was a mermaid from the mermaid clan. The other members of the merchant group had gloomy expressions when they saw her. They hadn't expected that their young master had really brought a mermaid along on the ship. After all, that was like poking a hornet's nest. Big sister, I beg you to spare her. Big sister, I beg you. Yi Liangqin pleaded hastily when he saw the woman. The woman flashed over to Yi Liangqin and slapped him on the face before she said furiously, Yi Liangqin, you actually brought a mermaid on board. Do you know that all of us would die because of you? Just have a look outside. There are over 10 Exalt rank and over 1,000 Spirit rank oceanic creatures out there. So long as they're willing, they can double or even triple their forces. You want us to spare her? Are you an idiot? Big sister, We love each other sincerely. Please don't give her to the mermaid clan. Otherwise, I'll take my own life right now. You should know that I'm not joking, said Xianxia in a serious tone. You! The veiled woman's chest rose and fell rapidly from her anger. Human! Hand her over! Right at this moment, the merman outside the ship's barrier spoke once more. Yang Yi noticed that the number of members of the mermaid clan outside was growing. Hand her over! The veiled woman ordered in a cold voice. Don't you dare! Xianxia suddenly flared up. I'll annihilate the entire family of anyone who dares to hand her over. Slap! Another palm print appeared on Xianxia's face. He gazed at the veiled woman and said, Big sister, I've never asked you for anything throughout my life, but I beg you to not give her to them, all right? Her clansmen will kill her if you hand her to them. They'll really kill her. Xianxia. Meanwhile, the mermaid suddenly said, Don't put your older sister in a difficult position. I'm already very satisfied to have been able to meet you and fall in love with you. Thank you for rescuing me from those humans who tried to capture me and allowed me to keep my dignity. Thank you. Hong Yu. I won't hand you over to them, I won't. Xianxia said, We've agreed that we would explore the human world together, and I promised that to you. I'll absolutely fulfill my promise. Big sister, I beg you, don't hand her over. Don't hand her over to them and I'll obey everything you say in the future. Everything. The veiled woman took a deep breath and said, Do you realize that we'll be besieged to death by these fellows from the mermaid clan? Bang! Right at this moment, the ship suddenly shook. All of them looked over and saw that the merman had started attacking the ship. Yang Ye's expression became solemn because that fellow's strength was very formidable. Human! Quickly hand her over. The merman struck the defensive barrier a few more times, causing the ship to shake violently. Yang Yi fell silent. He'd decided to stay out of this matter. In any case, the mermaid clan hadn't come looking for him. The veiled woman looked Xianxia in the eye for a long time. Suddenly, she slapped him on the back of his head, and he instantly fell unconscious. Of course, he was still under Yang Ye's control. You should be aware that he'll hate you forever once he wakes up. Perhaps he'll even take you to be his enemy, said Yang Yi. The veiled woman glanced coldly at Yang Yi, and then she walked over to the mermaid and said, I'm sorry, but I can't keep you here. The mermaid called Hong Yu nodded and said, I understand. Tell him that I'll be his wife in my next life. The veiled woman nodded, and then she brought Hong Yu with her as she walked over to the merman and said, Ask your forces to withdraw and I'll hand her over immediately. The merman glanced at the veiled woman. Suddenly, he pointed at Yang Yi and said, Hand him over as well. The veiled woman was first stunned, and then she was delighted because her intuition told her that these fellows from the mermaid clan were going to be in trouble. Yang Yi was stunned as well. I don't even know this fellow. Could the mermaid clan have sided with Luo Jun as well? Yang Ye's gaze turned icy cold when he thought of this. What? You're unwilling to do that? The merman spoke coldly. Countless waves surged around him, and his imposing aura was shocking. The veiled woman gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Yi said, I don't think we know each other, right? I'm really curious why you've asked for me. Someone has placed a bounty on you. 1,000 top-grade energy stones for you alive, and 500 if you're dead. The merman said, I'm really curious why an ant who's merely a second-rank spirit realm profounder would be worth 1,000 top-grade energy stones? Alright, enough of talk. Come over if you're sensible, otherwise all those by your side will die because of you. Yang Yi didn't have to give it any thought to know who'd placed a bounty on him. He didn't waste his breath at all and just waved his hand, causing 100 top-grade energy stones to fall into the slots in the surroundings. In an instant, countless rays of light shot into the air. That merman was astounded, and his figure flashed swiftly and barely avoided the rays of light. However, some of the other mermen and mermaids in the surroundings weren't that swift, and they were instantly blasted into bits. Yang Yi didn't lack top-grade energy stones as well. After all, he had at least 30,000 extreme-grade energy stones within the tiny vortex. One of them was equivalent to 100 top-grade energy stones. So, How many did he have? Could anyone in the world be richer than he was? Xianxia waved his hand and another 200 top-grade energy stones appeared before the veiled woman as he said, "Blast them! Blast all of these bastards into bits. Motherfuckers! They just had to go be Luo Jun's dogs instead of just being oceanic creatures as they should. I'll make it so that they can't even be dogs." The corners of the others' mouths twitched when they saw Xianxia produce 200 more top-grade energy stones. Exactly how rich is he? The veiled woman's eyelids twitched as well because even she, one of the owners of the Ocean of Clouds merchant group, wasn't able to casually produce so many top-grade energy stones like Xianxia had. No matter what, the danger they faced seemed to have been resolved, and she didn't have to hand Hongyu over. She naturally doted upon her younger brother and didn't want him to live his life in pain. Now that it had sufficient energy stones, the formations around the ship didn't stop for a moment. Countless rays of light shot incessantly towards the surroundings, and a large number of mermen and mermaids were instantly blasted to death. That merman from before hurriedly gave the other for them to retreat, and he didn't dare approach the ship again. Yuan Yen and the others were delighted when they saw this scene, because they felt that it was definitely the last energy stones that the Ocean of Clouds merchant group had. So, once this wave of attacks concluded, then the merchant group would definitely be out of energy stones. They refused to believe that the merchant group had brought over 1,000 top-grade energy stones with them on this rip. So, they intended to attack once this wave of attacks came to an end. Xianxia, you're really rich, and Xiaonan had suddenly appeared by Yang Ye's side. However, she didn't get too close to him. Obviously, she was still afraid of this demon. "You're thinking of robbing me?" said Xianxia. And Xiaonan hurriedly waved her hands and said, "Not now, only when I get back." And Xiaonan had blurted it out by accident. She seemed extremely afraid that Xianxia would attack her, so she hurriedly took a few steps back and didn't dare speak another word. Xianxia rolled his eyes as her. She actually really intends to rob me. Right at this moment, those rays of light had vanished. At the same time, Yuan Yen and the others attacked once more. Right when Yuan Yan's group arrived within 300 m of the ship, a few dozen rays of light had shot once more into the sky and charged towards their group. Yuan Yan's expression changed when he saw these rays of light, whereas the others by his side were horrified. They didn't have the time to think as they hurriedly tore space apart and fled backward. However, there were still 6 of them that hadn't been able to flee in time, and they were struck by the rays of light and blasted into nothingness. Damn it! How could they possibly have more top-grade energy stones? Yuan Yen, didn't you say that they had none left? Yuan Yen, are you trying to kill all of us? Or perhaps your Sky Devil sect is exhausting our forces on purpose? The other 8 Exalt Realm experts who survived the attack glared angrily at Yuan Yen. Yuan Yen was at the 6th rank of the Exalt Realm, so while those rays of light from the ship were dangerous to him, they weren't life-threatening. But it wasn't the same for them. They weren't even at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm, so they were practically incapable of resisting such rays of light. How would I know that they still had more top-grade energy stones? Yuan Yen spoke furiously. I'm doing it on purpose? Have a good look. Even my Sky Devil sect lost 3 Exalt Realm experts. Humph. In any case, I won't be attacking again. You, Yuan Yen, can do it yourself. One of the old men spoke coldly because he would have probably lost his life just now if he were just a tad bit slower. As soon as the old man spoke these words, then all the others besides Medusa, who was from the Sky Devil sect as well, had stood on the old man's side. Obviously, they didn't want to go give their lives away. Yuan Yen gazed at the old man and said in a low voice, "Lu Sun, you should know who gave the order to pursue and kill Xianxia. Would you and your sect be able to bear the responsibility if we let Xianxia go? Then why doesn't your Sky Devil sect do it?" Lu Shui said coldly, "Don't act like we don't know that the only reason your Sky Devil sect is working so hard is that the mortal emperor promised to make your Sky Devil sect the #1 sect in the Ocean of Anarchy. Your Sky Devil sect would naturally do its best when there's such a reward waiting for you. Yuan Yen, I'll be frank. My Blue Wave sect won't be participating in this anymore. We've lost 3 Exalt Realm experts. So we have an excuse even if the mortal emperor seeks to punish us. Yuan Yan's expression was slightly unsightly as he glanced at the members of the Nebula Sect and Divine Mystery Sect. He said, "Your sects don't intend to participate anymore as well?" An elder of the Divine Mystery Sect said, "Yuan Yan, it isn't that we refuse, but we're utterly unable to do anything against that fellow Yang Yi, right? How about we do it this way? If you, Yuan Yan, are able to destroy the offensive formations on that ship, then my Divine Mystery Sect will stay behind, all right?" "I agree," an elder of the Nebula Sect said. "Yuan Yan, we're willing to continue pursuing Yang Yi with you if you're able to deal with the ship's formations. If you can't, then I'm sorry. After all, we've lost numerous Exalt Realm experts, and it would be an extremely heavy blow to our sects if all of us were to perish here." Yuan Yan's expression was gloomy. The sect master of his sect had instructed him to make sure that he killed Yang Yi because Yang Yi couldn't be allowed to arrive at the Central Territory. He was full of confidence when he came here because he was at the 6th rank of the Exalt rank and was even leading 20 Exalt Realm experts with him. Such a force could slaughter a sect, so wouldn't it be extremely easy for them to kill an ant at the 2nd rank of the Spirit Realm? However, the reality of the situation was that this ant was even more difficult to deal with than a sect was. Yuan Yan slightly understood why the mortal emperor desired to kill Yang Yi. If such a monstrous genius were to be allowed to mature, then even the mortal emperor would probably be extremely fearful of him, right? If I'm unable to kill Yang Yi here, then the mortal emperor will probably be very disappointed in my Sky Devil sect, right? He didn't really mind if the mortal emperor were disappointed in his sect, but the terms that the mortal emperor had promised his sect would probably be gone. When he thought of that, Yuan Yan stopped hesitating, and his figure flashed over to the sky above the ship. He gazed at the members of the merchant group and said, "Miss Yi, Yang Yi is someone the mortal emperor wants to kill. Aren't you afraid of offending the mortal emperor if you continue helping him like this? I think that Miss Ye's father would probably not support Miss Ye's current actions, right?" The veiled woman said, "We have no intention to become enemies with the exalted Han Empire, but I believe Senior has noticed that my younger brother's life is in Yang Ye's hands. I have no choice but to do as he says." Yuan Yan's face fell, and he said, "Then don't blame me for showing no mercy." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan Yan suddenly slapped his right palm down towards the ship. A palm that was around 300 m long flashed into appearance, and it caused the ocean below to be directly blasted up and was practically on the verge of drowning the ship. Bang! The palm blasted upon the barrier of light which covered the ship. The entire ship sank down swiftly while countless waves shot into the air. The expressions of everyone within the ship changed drastically. Yang Yi gazed at the veiled woman. The latter hesitated slightly before she activated the formation again. In an instant, a few dozen rays of light shot into the air towards Yuan Yan. A vicious expression flashed through Yuan Yan's eyes as he slapped his right palm down once more, causing over a dozen rays of light to be instantly blasted into nothingness. However, there were still over 20 that didn't slow down at all as they arrived before him. Yuan Yan's expression changed a little, and he stretched his hands forward as he suddenly shouted, "Spatial cage!" The rays of light suddenly froze on the spot. Yang Ye's face turned a little gloomy, and he waved his right hand once more, causing 100 top-grade energy stones to fall before the veiled woman. He said, "Attack! Blast him to death!" The veiled woman glanced at Yang Yi before she activated the formation again. Another few dozen rays of light shot into the sky again, and it caused Yuan Yan's expression to change drastically. He didn't dare go head-on against them, and his figure flickered a few times before it appeared at the other side of the ship. He said, "Let me see exactly how many top-grade energy stones you have." He slapped his palm down once more as he spoke these words. Yang Yi had no choice but to admit that Yuan Yan's strength was extremely formidable, because Yuan Yan had actually been able to resist the formations on the entire ship by himself. However, Yang Yi could also discern that it wasn't easy for Yuan Yan. After all, the destructive force of those rays of light were extremely terrifying, and even a 6th-rank Exalt Realm expert like Yuan Yen would probably be heavily injured if he were to be struck by them. Yang Yi knew that Yuan Yen was using his life to exhaust their top-grade energy stones, because once they ran out, then it would be the moment of their deaths. However, would he run out of them? Even though Yang Yi had a huge amount of them, he didn't want to play such a game of exhaustion with Yuan Yen. Yang Yi grasped Void Flash while the profound energy within him surged. The members of the merchant group had noticed Yang Ye's actions as well, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Could he be thinking of killing Yuan Yen? Yuan Yen is a 6th-rank Exalt Realm expert after all. Yuan Yen had noticed Yang Ye's actions as well, and his eyelids twitched. He was naturally afraid of that mysterious Dao artifact in Yang Ye's possession. After all, that sword was extremely mysterious. If it was at any other time, then he would be naturally confident in his ability to dodge the attacks of that sword since he was vigilant against it. However, just dealing with those rays of light was quite exhausting for him, so how could he possibly have the ability to be vigilant against Yang Ye's attacks? Yang Yi gradually raised Void Flash, and it caused Yuan Yan's expression to change slightly. He stopped hesitating, slapped apart the ray of light in front of him, and then directly vanished on the spot. Everyone on the ship was astounded. He was scared away just like that? A dignified 6th-rank Exalt Realm expert was actually scared away just like that? Yang Yi was slightly astounded. He fled just like that? But that's fortunate as well. I can save my profound energy. After all, he exhausted a huge amount of profound energy with every swing of Void Flash. Lu Xun and the others shook their heads when they saw Yuan Yen retreat in defeat, and they didn't hesitate to leave. Besides the 2 members of the Sky Devil sect, everyone else tore space apart and left immediately. Since the formation of the ship couldn't be eliminated, then it was utterly pointless for them to continue staying here because the slightest mistake might even cause them to perish. So, they hadn't hesitated to leave once Yuan Yen retreated in defeat. Yuan Yan's expression was slightly unsightly when he saw them leave. He'd intended to ask them to lend him a hand because he felt that the enemy's top-grade energy stones had definitely arrived at its limits. So long as they all joined forces and exhausted a few more rounds of attacks, then Yang Yi would definitely die. However, he hadn't expected that these fellows would actually run without saying a single word. What a bunch of trash! Yuan Yen spoke with rage. Elder Yuan, are we still going to attack now? Asked Medusa as she stood by Yuan Yan's side. Actually, she really wanted to leave because they were utterly incapable of killing Yang Yi now. Moreover, the slightest mistake might cause her to lose her life here. But she had no choice but to stay because she was a member of the Sky Devil sect. So she didn't dare leave before Yuan Yen gave the order. Yuan Yen fell silent for a short while before he shook his head and said, "He'll be at the Central Territory in half a day from now, and we'll be utterly unable to find him once he hides amongst the masses there. We've lost our best chance to kill him. Go back and notify the sect master that the assassination has failed." "Elder Yuan, are you not returning?" asked Medusa. A cold glow flashed in his eyes as he said, "I have matters to attend to. You return first." Medusa nodded, and then she tore space apart and vanished on the spot. Killing intent flashed through Yuan Yan's eyes as he gazed at the ship on the ocean below. He was determined to kill Yang Yi because the mortal emperor had promised to make him an imperial honorary elder of the exalted Han Empire if he could kill Yang Yi. The benefits of such status were enormous. Not to mention anything else, just the 100 top-grade energy stones he could obtain every single month were tempting to him. Moreover, he was tempted by the Dao artifact in Yang Ye's possession as well. If it was in his possession, then he was confident that he would be invincible in the Exalt realm. A savage smile suddenly appeared on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth when he saw that just Yuan Yen remained. He could only let the matter rest if Yuan Yen left. However, Yuan Yen had actually stayed behind, and he was even all by himself. He's really courting death. Yang Yi released Yi Liangqin and put the immortal binding rope away before he said, "Go on ahead. I'll catch up in a while." As soon as he finished speaking, the 9th Hell sword wings flapped behind Yang Yi, and he vanished on the spot. He was sure that the veiled woman would wait for him because those members of the mermaid clan hadn't left, and they had to rely on him to resist the mermaid clan. Yuan Yen was slightly stunned when he saw Yang Yi appear in front of him. This fellow came to give his life away. However, his expression changed in next to no time because 3 black-clothed figures had appeared around him. Swish! The immortal binding rope shot through space and instantly arrived in front of Yuan Yen, causing his expression to change slightly. He didn't dare allow this Tao artifact to bind him. He was just about to flash away when the space around him froze, and his expression changed again. He was naturally aware that it was caused by the spatial cage technique, and it was even more than one spatial cage. He's thinking of trapping me with spatial cages that are only at such a level? Yuan Yen felt disdainful in his heart. He suddenly pushed his hands forward, and then it sounded like glass was shattering as the spatial cage that the 3 of them created was instantly blasted apart. Moreover, even the immortal binding rope had been blasted away by this attack. Right at this moment, Yuan Yan's pupils constricted while an unprecedentedly serious expression appeared on his face, because 4 swords had suddenly appeared around him. The 4 of them were connected by numerous rays of light, and they surrounded him at their center. With his discerning ability, he was naturally able to immediately discern that they were all Tao artifacts, and they'd formed a formation that made even him feel severely threatened. Exactly how many Tao artifacts does he possess? Yuan Yen cursed in his heart, and he didn't dare act carelessly at all. The profound energy within him surged explosively and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, the 4 swords around him had suddenly started to revolve swiftly, and then countless rays of light flickered into appearance and enveloped Yuan Yen, causing Yuan Yan's expression to change drastically. Ruin! Yang Ye's furious roar resounded from outside the sword formation while his countenance turned ghastly pale. However, his eyes were filled with a ruthless expression, while a thin layer of golden film gradually floated up onto his body and remained beneath his clothes. Along with Yang Ye's shout, those rays of light around Yuan Yen had suddenly stopped moving. In the next moment, a bang resounded as they flashed over and instantly destroyed the space in the area where Yuan Yen stood. Countless pitch-black rifts appeared there while a horrifying torrent of black energy surged there. Yang Yi didn't reveal a relaxed expression at all. Conversely, his expression grew even more solemn. Die! Right at this moment, Yuan Yen shot out from amidst the rays of light created by the 4 Tao artifacts, and he instantly arrived before Yang Yi before slapping his palm down towards Yang Ye's chest. There was an extremely fierce glow on his palm. At this moment, Yuan Yen was in a slightly embarrassing state. His clothes had been completely cut apart into rags that revealed a large amount of his skin, and the exposed skin throughout his body and even his face were covered in bloody scars. However, Yuan Yen had a smile of delight on his face because even an expert at the same realm of cultivation as him would find it impossible to avoid his attack, let alone Yang Yi. In other words, Yang Yi was dead. Once Yang Yi was dead, then those Tao artifacts and the natural treasures Yang Yi possessed would be his. He could be considered to be invincible in the Exalt realm once he possessed all of them. So, Yuan Yan's smile grew even more brilliant when he thought of that. Yuan Yen hadn't noticed that there was a smile on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth as well. Bang! Yuan Yan's palm slapped onto Yang Ye's chest. Yang Yi didn't move at all, and it caused Yuan Yan's smile to freeze on the spot while disbelief surged into his eyes. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's smile grew wider. Yang Yi was aware that the ruined sword formation wouldn't be able to kill Yuan Yen at all, and it would be able to heavily injure him at most. After all, Yuan Yen was even stronger than Ding Xiang, so he'd activated the Mortal Emperor armor while he utilized the sword formation. Yuan Yen didn't have the time to think, and his instincts urged him to evade. Meanwhile, the immortal binding rope on Yang Ye's arm seemed like a little snake that instantly coiled around Yuan Yan's body. Horror appeared in Yuan Yan's eyes when he noticed the profound energy within his body falling into a completely still state. Right at this moment, Hong appeared behind him, and then a strand of cold light pierced through his back. The color in Yuan Yan's eyes vanished gradually, and his eyes were still filled with boundless unwillingness when he died. Yang Yi instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Yuan Yen perish. Because activating the mortal emperor armor had completely exhausted all the profound energy that remained within his body. Fortunately, he'd predicted that would happen, and he'd withdrawn an extreme-grade energy stone and started to absorb the energy within it as soon as he activated the sword formation. That was why he wasn't completely weak and paralyzed like he had been the other day. Yang Yi couldn't help but curse himself when he recalled the embarrassing state he was in after he killed Ding Xiang that day, and he really felt that he was an idiot. After all, if he'd planned everything well that day like he had just now, then he would have definitely not fallen to such a state. Yang Yi shook his head and summoned the sword spirit before passing Yuan Yan's corpse to her. Yuan Yan's strength wasn't bad at all, and he was extremely suitable to be refined into a sword servant. Even though he couldn't subdue such a sword servant yet, he believed that he would be able to very soon. Quickly advance to the Exalt realm. Once you've done that, then besides Monarch realm experts, there's probably not a single Exalt realm expert in this world who'll be able to kill you with ease. Moreover, you'll be able to subdue even more sword servants once you've attained the Exalt realm. In short, the mortal emperor won't be able to use assassins against you once you've attained the Exalt realm, said the sword spirit. Yang Yi nodded. He agreed with the sword spirit. Even though he could kill Exalt realm experts now, he was relying on the Tao artifacts and sword servants he possessed. Even if he didn't have them, then he would absolutely be unable to kill Exalt realm experts in a head-on collision. Even the most ordinary Exalt realm experts. So, just like the sword spirit had said, he had to advance to the Exalt realm as soon as possible. Yang Yi took a deep breath and sat down cross-legged as he absorbed the energy within the energy stone in his palm. Even though he wanted to attain the Exalt realm, he still had to take it one step at a time. The energy within extreme-grade energy stones were extremely pure, and it surged incessantly into Yang Ye's body like material threads of energy. After they entered his body, they were selected, eliminated, refined, and transformed into profound energy that slowly moved along his meridians and surged in the tiny vortex. Earlier, his profound energy had dried up, so the entrance of new profound energy instantly caused the blood within him to become lively once more. Just like that, around an hour passed before Yang Ye's profound energy had recovered. Moreover, he noticed that he'd advanced by a rank of cultivation and attained the 3rd rank of the spirit realm. Besides that, he faintly showed signs of moving up and charging into the 4th rank of the spirit realm, but he'd suppressed that breakthrough. Even though he wanted to attain the Exalt realm as soon as possible, he wanted to maintain a solid foundation. Improvement of strength that was too fast would lead to potential troubles in the end, especially when he'd once utilized a secret technique to forcefully increase his cultivation. At that time, he'd sensed that while it hadn't really harmed his foundation, it had more or less affected it. So, taking it one step at a time and establishing a solid foundation was the most important to him. Besides another sword servant and improving a rank in his cultivation, Yang Yi had gained one more thing from this battle, and it was a low-grade heaven rank technique that Yuan Yen carried with him, Titan's Palm. Yang Yi was quite satisfied by this technique's strength. After all, Yuan Yen had almost destroyed the defensive barrier of the ship when he executed it just now. Even though it wasn't a sword technique, it was still useful to Yang Yi. After he put the technique away, Yang Yi didn't stay here for another moment. The 9th hell sword wings on his back flapped before he vanished on the spot. On the ship which belonged to the Ocean of Clouds merchant group, Xianxia, who'd woken up, asked the veiled woman, "Big sister, has that fellow, Yang Yi, really gone to kill Yuan Yen?" Xianxia was overjoyed when he saw that the mermaid was still here when he woke up, and his impression of Yang Yi instantly skyrocketed when he found out that it was because of Yang Yi. He should have. The veiled woman was slightly uncertain. Truthfully speaking, Yang Yi had completely overturned her understanding of monstrous geniuses. Even if it was in the Central Territory, only a handful of Spirit Realm experts were capable of killing Exalt Realm experts. So, if Yang Yi really killed Yuan Yen, who was a 6th rank Exalt Realm expert, then he wasn't someone that could just be described as a monstrous genius. I thought that even if I couldn't defeat him, I should be able to fight him equally. But I never expected that the gap between us would be that huge. It's really such a blow to my confidence. Xianxia sighed. As someone from the Central Territory, he looked down upon the profounders of the other territories just like everyone else in the Central Territory did. So, he didn't really care even when he found out that Yang Yi had become the Sword Emperor. Only when he fought Yang Yi did he notice the gap between him and Yang Yi. He's very strong, even if it's within my mermaid clan. No. I should say that he's at the top even if it's throughout all the clans of oceanic creatures. Hong Yu, who was by Yi Liangxian's side, said, "But you shouldn't lose heart. Even if there's a gap between the two of you, it isn't to the point that it warrants despair. You should make him your target and work hard to pursue his footsteps. Only in that way would you be able to grow stronger and stronger." Yi Liangxian smiled. He stretched out his hand to grab hers and said, "Don't worry. I won't lose heart because of him." Hong Yu grinned as she grabbed Yi Liangxian's hand as well, and her eyes were filled with tender affection. "Young miss, are we really going to wait for him?" The old man by the veiled woman's side said, "He's a sworn enemy of Luo Jun's. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be swept into their enmity." The veiled woman said, "It's already too late. It was too late since we activated the formations to attack those fellows from the Skydevil sect and the other 3 sects. Now we're on the same boat as him. We can give the mortal emperor an explanation," said the old man. "Do you think that he would believe it?" The veiled woman said, "Moreover, it doesn't matter whether he believed it or not. Now that he has such an excuse, we'll either have to submit to him or he will act against our merchant group. It's impossible for us to stay neutral anymore." The old man shook his head upon hearing this. The Ocean of Clouds merchant group had originally maintained a neutral position and hadn't been swept into the enmity between the mortal emperor and all the other territories. But even though they'd been forced to provide Yang Yi with assistance this time, would Luo Jun care about that? It was just as the veiled woman had said. It was impossible for their merchant group to remain neutral. Right at this moment, a figure flashed through the sky, and then Yang Yi appeared before them. Their expressions changed a little when they saw Yang Yi. "Yang Yi, did you kill Yuan Yen?" And Xiaonan asked this question softly. The others looked at Yang Yi. Yang Yi didn't answer and Xiaonan. He gazed at the veiled woman and said, "Miss Yi, how long more until we arrive at the Central Territory?" The veiled woman looked ahead and said, "If those mermaids and mermen in the surroundings don't obstruct us, then it'll take 6 hours at most. However, if they do, then we'll be delayed for a day or two because they're able to affect the ocean or create storms." Yang Yi waved his hand, and then 300 top-grade energy stones appeared before the veiled woman. He said, "Go at full speed with the formations activated all along the way. Blast them to pieces." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Ye's figure flashed into the air as he said, "Miss Yi, ask your companions to help me stop the attacks of some exalt-rank oceanic creatures. I'm going to cook these fellows that are courting death." The veiled woman was stunned. She didn't know what Yang Yi intended to do, but she didn't refuse. She nodded to the others behind her, and then they flashed off into the sky. Yang Yi nodded when he saw this. The nether ghost flame appeared with a flip of his palm, and a wisp of a ruthless expression flashed through his eyes as he gazed at the oceanic creatures in the distance before he tossed the nether ghost flame down towards the ocean. "I'll cook all of you today, dogs of Luo Jun." The others were speechless when they heard this. The nether ghost flame spread swiftly upon falling into the ocean, and less than 2 breaths of time had passed when an area of over 500 m had transformed into a flaming ocean, and the water there had instantly started to boil. Some comparatively weaker members of the mermaid clan were instantly burnt alive, whereas the remaining mermaids and mermen were horrified and hurriedly fled towards the depths of the ocean. The surroundings were in a mess, and there were sorrowful howls resounding incessantly through the surroundings. The members of the Ocean of Clouds merchant group had solemn expressions on their faces as they gazed at the ocean of flames. Moreover, their gazes towards Yang Yi were filled with fear. Even the veiled woman's eyes were filled with fear. At this moment, she recalled a saying, "The Sword Emperor, an existence that destroys all techniques with a single strike and is invincible amongst those at the same realm of cultivation." She hadn't really believed these words in the past, especially when the Sword Emperor had appeared in the Southern Territory. However, she had no choice but to believe it now. My big brother is probably unable to defeat that fellow, right? And Xiaonan muttered softly as she gazed at Yang Yi, who floated in midair. Those experts of the merchant group who were fighting off the Exalt Realm oceanic creatures by Yang Ye's side were extremely shocked as well. Even those Exalt Realm experts were the same, because they sensed an extremely strong sense of danger from Yang Yi. Human, I'll kill you. Right at this moment, the merman from before suddenly roared furiously, and he pounced towards Yang Yi with his trident in hand and was even accompanied by some Exalt rank oceanic creatures. Yang Yi naturally had no intention to go head-on against him because it was meaningless. Yang Yi waved his hand, and the nether ghost flame instantly transformed into a small clump of flames that entered in his body. His figure flashed off and descended onto the deck before he glanced at the veiled woman. She understood his intentions and activated the formation once more, causing a few dozen rays of light to charge into the air. That merman was horrified. He didn't dare go head-on against the rays of light and hastily evaded them. However, two Exalt rank experts by his side didn't possess strength that could rival his, and they were struck by the rays of light and perished on the spot. The merman was simply furious to the point flames almost sprayed from his eyes as he watched his clansmen perish. However, he didn't dare to approach the ship, and he could only stare resentfully at Yang Yi from afar. Yang Yi sized the ship up. Needless to say, it was a very extraordinary treasure indeed, because it could even blast Exalt Realm experts to death with ease. Should I get one? But Yang Yi quickly gave up on this thought because it was utterly useless to him. After all, it could only be used on the ocean. Miss Yi, are there many ships like this one in the Ocean of Anarchy? Asked Yang Yi. The veiled woman nodded and said, There are over 10,000. That many? Yang Yi was astounded. If over 10,000 of them were to activate their formations at once. He didn't dare imagine how terrifying it would be. The veiled woman said, I know what you're thinking. Actually, you might have not thought about it, but while this ship is terrifying, its consumption of resources is extremely terrifying as well. Even some sects aren't able to afford utilizing such ships. So, while there are many such ships throughout the Ocean of Anarchy, they aren't terrifying. After all, no one would activate its formations like we did and exhaust over 1,000 top-grade energy stones in a single day. We're the first to do such a thing in the last 100 years. Yang Yi nodded. It was true because if he hadn't obtained a fortuitous encounter and gained the treasures that the White Dragon had accumulated for over thousands of years, he wouldn't activate the formations on this ship no matter what, because it truly burned up too many top-grade energy stones. Simply speaking, most sects or powers regarded such a ship as something they could afford to buy but couldn't afford to use. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment and asked another question. Miss Yi, which power in the Ocean of Anarchy possesses the most of these ships? The Ding clan, the veiled woman said. They have control of practically 80% of all ships throughout the Ocean of Anarchy. They are true overlords here. The Ding clan, huh? At this moment, he believed what Ding Xiaoyao had told him that day. She said that if the Ding clan wanted to, then the forces of the exalted Han Empire wouldn't be able to pass through the Ocean of Anarchy at all. Indeed, even though it would require a huge amount of top-grade energy stones, but with so many ships and coupled with the ability and reserves of the Ding clan, it shouldn't be a problem for those ships to be utilized a few times. Not to mention a few times, even once wasn't something that ordinary armies could endure. The veiled woman suddenly said, Young Master Yang, are you traveling to the Central Territory to head to the Saint Ruins in the wilds? Yang Yi was slightly surprised and said, How did you know? She pondered deeply for a moment before she said, Are you aware that the Central Territory is the exalted Han Empire's territory? Moreover, the 3 9th rank sects of the Central Territory have sided with the exalted Han Empire. Besides that, some other extraordinary clans have shown faint signs of siding with the exalted Han Empire as well. You can be said to be surrounded by enemies upon entering the Central Territory. To be frank, you'll probably be unable to do anything upon arriving at the Central Territory with the strength you possess right now. Yang Yi fell silent. Actually, he was naturally aware of the difficulties that he would face. However, he had no choice. He had to continue forward. Even though he wasn't afraid, he was clearly aware about what would be waiting for him once he arrived at the Central Territory. It would definitely be a pursuit to kill that was 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than before. But so what about that? Xianxia said, I agree with Miss Yi. However, could it be that I should turn around and go back right now? I'll move forward regardless of what awaits me ahead. They say that once the mortal emperor emerges, then all territories will submit to him as he's the representative of the heavens. However, Xianxia, refuse to do so. Let me see if the mortal emperor will have the last laugh or I will. Well said. Meanwhile, and Xiaonan suddenly clapped and said, Demon Yang, you're right. I can't stand the sight of that fellow Luo Jun, as well. The mortal emperor? He's just a despicable fellow. I would admire him if he came and defeated you in an upright manner. However, he used such despicable methods to kill you. I looked down on him. Fortunately, my grandfather didn't agree to cooperate with him. Demon Yang? The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched. She has really taken me to be a demon. However, it made sense to him, in a way. After all his actions were done willfully, and he'd never considered right or wrong. So, how was it any different from the actions of those legendary demons of the human world? The veiled woman hesitated for a moment before she said, Young Master Yang can come to my Yi clan to lay low for a while, if you so desire. Even though my Yi clan is inferior to the exalted Han Empire, it isn't an existence that others can crush at will. She'd originally intended to cut all ties with Xianxia. After all, she didn't want to completely offend the exalted Han Empire. However, she'd decided to show favor to Xianxia after giving it some thought, because she felt that the mortal emperor may not be able to eliminate Xianxia. Once Xianxia survived and matured, then it would be equivalent to obtaining the friendship of an extraordinary expert for the Yi clan. Xianxia was slightly surprised by this, because she actually dared to do that when she knew that his enemy was the exalted Han Empire. Needless to say, he felt that she was very brave. He said, Miss Yi, I appreciate your kind intentions, but it'll be extremely harmful to your Yi clan if I were to go there now. Moreover, I have to reach the Saint Ruins as soon as possible. She wanted to say something when the old man by her side suddenly said, Young miss, we're at the Central Territory. Xianxia raised his eyes to look over when he heard this, and he saw an expanse of grand buildings had appeared within his field of vision. Bang! The 9th Hell sword wings appeared on his back. He knew that there were probably countless fellows waiting for him on the shore, so he had no choice but to flee for his life again. Even though it was slightly aggrieving, what could he do when he'd come into his enemy's territory? Right at this moment, the veiled woman suddenly withdrew a talisman and a sheepskin scroll before passing it to Xianxia. She said, Young Master Yang, this is a high-grade random teleportation talisman and a map of the Central Territory. Both of them should be quite useful to you right now. Xianxia glanced at her and then he grinned. He didn't refuse it and took it from her as he said, I'll remember this kindness. The veiled woman said, Take care. Xianxia nodded, and then his figure flashed into the sky. Right at this moment, over a dozen figures suddenly appeared on the distant shore, and they flashed swiftly towards Xianxia. All of them were Exalt Realm experts. Moreover, there were even 5 of them at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm or above. Xianxia's eyelids twitched. Luo Jun has really set up a huge net for me. Xianxia didn't hesitate to crush the talisman in his grasp, and then a wave of light flickered before he vanished on the spot. Xianxia had just vanished when those Exalt Realm experts arrived where he was just standing. Damn it! He actually had a random teleportation talisman. A middle-aged man had a gloomy expression as he cursed. He would have been able to obtain 1,000 top-grade energy stones from killing Xianxia, but such a reward was gone just like that. He was furious to the point of wanting to kill someone right here and now. In next to no time, he shot his gaze towards the ship of the Ocean of Clouds merchant group, and his eyes flickered with a ferocious glow. He was just about to attack them when another Exalt Realm expert by his side had suddenly stopped him and said, That's a ship which belongs to the Ocean of Clouds merchant group. Don't be rash, otherwise. All of us will die if we offend that old madman from the Yi clan. The middle-aged man's eyelids twitched when he heard the name, the Ocean of Clouds merchant group. The killing intent in his heart instantly vanished as he said, "That fellow Yang Yi hasn't gone far. Let's split up. We'll definitely be able to catch up to him with the speed we possess." Split up. One of them frowned and said, "According to rumor, he has the strength to kill Exalt Realm experts. Wouldn't it be? You even fucking believe that nonsense?" The middle-aged man said furiously, "A Spirit Realm Profounder killing an Exalt Realm expert? Do you think he's the Sword Sect's founding ancestor from all those years ago? I believe that his strength isn't bad, but I refuse to believe he's able to kill Exalt Realm experts. It's probably just a groundless rumor that makes him seem that extraordinary." The others thought for a moment and felt that it made sense as well. Indeed, it was too inconceivable for a second-rank Spirit Realm Profounder to kill Exalt Realm experts. In any case, they'd never witnessed something like that throughout their entire lifetimes. Their figures flashed towards different directions, and they vanished in the blink of an eye. Xianxia said, "Big sister, they seem to be independent cultivators. Looks like Luo Jun has issued a bounty on Yang Yi in the entire Central Territory." The veiled woman nodded and didn't say anything. After just around 10 minutes of time, the news of the Sword Emperor, Yang Ye's, arrival at the Central Territory had spread through the Central Territory like a plague. Countless independent cultivators of the Central Territory started to search madly for Yang Yi. And it even included profounders at the Spirit Realm, King Realm, and even the First Heaven Realm, because the compensation for the bounty on Yang Yi that the Exalted Han Empire issued had been increased from 1,000 top-grade energy stones to 3,000. Moreover, it even included 2 low-grade heaven rank techniques and a low-grade heaven rank dark treasure. The entire Central Territory was instantly stirred by Yang Ye's arrival. Yang Ye's reputation in the Southern Territory was huge, and it was to the extent that he was known to all and feared by all. However, many people in the Central Territory didn't know Yang Yi, or it should be said that they weren't aware of Yang Ye's true strength. Even though they knew that Yang Yi was the Sword Emperor, Yang Yi was only a Spirit Realm Profounder in their opinion, so even if he were a monstrous genius, how monstrous could he be? Besides that, the rewards provided by the Exalted Han Empire was truly too tempting, and many weren't able to refuse it at all, nor did they want to refuse it. Especially the independent cultivators. It was an opportunity that couldn't be chanced upon in 1,000 years to them. They just had to kill Yang Yi and their fates would be changed. Thus, countless independent cultivators had started to search all over for Yang Yi. It wasn't just independent cultivators, even the experts of some clans and sects were tempted by the rewards. 3,000 top-grade energy stones might not be anything great in the Exalted Han Empire, but it was quite a large sum of wealth to some clans and sections. Most importantly, they just had to kill a Spirit Realm Profounder to obtain such wealth. A Spirit Realm Profounder? Such an ant could be annihilated with a flick of their fingers. Yang Yi felt the world around him spin, and it made him feel slightly dizzy. He didn't know how long had passed before that feeling vanished, and he opened his eyes. However, he couldn't help but feel stunned. Where the heck am I? At this moment, Yang Yi was within a room, and the room was suffused by the faint fragrance of flowers that gladdened the heart and refreshed the mind. There was a dressing table, a pink canopy. Yang Yi just had to take a single glance to realize that it was the bedroom of a woman. Yang Yi was instantly speechless when he realized that he'd been randomly teleported into the room of a woman. Could my luck with women be that good? Yang Yi didn't want to be mistaken as someone who'd snuck into the room of a woman with ill intent, so he turned around with the intention of leaving. However, right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from outside the room, and it caused the corners of Yang Ye's mouth to twitch. He had no choice but to stop. "Wanner, Chun Yu has attained the 7th rank of the Spirit Realm at such a young age, and he's even an elite disciple of Sky Mist Sect. Not to mention in Needless City, he's an outstanding genius throughout the Central Territory or even throughout Profounder Continent. If you marry him, then you'll be the madam of the Chun clan once he attains the Exalt Realm and takes control of it." If you miss such a good candidate and such good conditions, then you'll regret it for your entire lifetime. A middle-aged man was standing outside the door of the room while he tried his best to convince the woman standing before him. The woman was around the age of 20, wore a light green dress, and had wave hair that hung down to her shoulders. She was graceful and beautiful, but she seemed to be weak and delicate. The woman didn't answer the middle-aged man when she heard him, and she just lowered her head slightly while her eyes drooped. The middle-aged man persuaded. Warner, Chun Yu has had deep feelings for you for a very long time, so he will absolutely not disappoint you if you marry him. Moreover, our Lu clan will be protected in Needless City once you've married him, and no one will dare to rashly bully us. Lu Warner still remained silent, and she clenched her dress tightly. The middle-aged man sighed lightly, and he hesitated for a moment before he asked, Warner, is it because you like someone else? How dare you? Right at this moment, a young man in luxurious robes appeared outside the entrance to the house. A wisp of fear flashed within Lu Warner's eyes when she saw him, and she instinctively took 2 steps back. Young Master Chun, what brought you here today? The middle-aged man was stunned before he spoke with a smile on his face. Chun Yu walked over to them. He paid no attention to the middle-aged man and just gazed at Lu Warner as he said, Warner, you've been constantly avoiding me. Do you really like someone else? Lu Warner was clearly very terrified of this man, and she took 2 more steps back and didn't dare look at him at all. A fierce glow flashed through Chun Yu's eyes as he said, Warner, you should be aware of my feelings. I'll kill you if I find out that you've betrayed me. Lu Warner clenched her dress tightly while her body trembled slightly. Chun Yu suddenly smiled and said, All right, Warner. I came here today to tell you that our wedding has to be delayed. Just stay at home and wait for me to come marry you once I'm done. It has to be delayed? The middle-aged man was puzzled. Young Master Chun, why? Chun Yu said, Uncle, you've probably heard of Yang Yi, right? The Sword Emperor Yang Yi? What about him? The middle-aged man was puzzled. Chun Yu spoke with disdain. The Sword Emperor? He's just a sword cultivator from a trash territory. He can dominate the southern territory, but he's nothing once he's here at the central territory. I'm just quite curious about why the exalted Han Empire would give such a huge reward for his head. But it doesn't matter because with the reputation it possesses, the exalted Han Empire would probably not go back on its word. Young Master Chun, you intend to kill Yang Yi? The middle-aged man spoke with surprise. Of course. Chun Yu smiled and said, I'm not the only one. The outer court disciples of my Sky Mist sect and even the disciples of my Chun clan have gone to look for him. If I'm able to obtain those 3,000 top-grade energy stones and those heaven-rank techniques and treasures, then I'm confident in my ability to attain the Exalt realm in 5 years at most. The middle-aged man hesitated before he said, Since that fellow, Yang Yi, was able to become the Sword Emperor, then I presume his strength should be not bad. Moreover, he definitely possesses some sort of shocking trump card. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to arrive at the Central Territory. Besides that, the exalted Han Empire wouldn't have provided such abundant rewards for his life. Young Master Chun, I think that you should be careful. It's best not to go looking for Yang Yi. Let others test his strength first. That's a safer method. Chun Yu spoke with displeasure. That fellow is only a 2nd-rank Spirit Realm Profounder while I'm at the 7th rank of the Spirit Realm. Uncle, do you think that I'm inferior to him? That's not what I meant. The middle-aged man intended to speak further, but Chun Yu interrupted him with a wave of his hand. He said, Uncle, just get everything done. I'll marry Warner once I return. Once Warner is married to me, then not one within Needless City will dare to act against your Lu clan. When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Lu Warner and said, Warner, just stay at home during this period of time and wait calmly for me to marry you. Understand? I don't want to get married. Suddenly, Lu Warner raised her head and gazed at Chun Yu. Even though there was fear in her eyes, there was firmness that allowed no doubt in her words. What did you say? Chun Yu's face suddenly fell. In his impression of her, this woman had never dared to speak to him at all. Yet now that she had, She'd actually said that she didn't want to marry him. Lu Wanner instantly took a few steps back when she heard this shout of his. However, a firm expression still remained in her eyes as she said, I don't like you, and I don't want to marry you. Wanner, what nonsense is that? Quickly apologized to young Master Chun. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man had recovered from his shock, but he was still extremely surprised in his heart. After all, his daughter had done everything he said in the past, so it made him wonder why she'd suddenly changed. Is it because I've been too hard on her? Lu Wanner's eyes were instantly filled with tears when the middle-aged man shouted at her. And then she glanced at the middle-aged man before she turned around, pushed the door open, and ran into the room. However, she was stunned right after that. The middle-aged man and Chun Yu were stunned as well upon following her in. Yang Yi was speechless. He really wanted to hide, but this room was only that big, so where could he hide? Slap! Suddenly, Chun Yu raised his hand and slapped Lu Wanner, causing the latter to be instantly struck flying. Chun Yu's expression was slightly ferocious as he said, Bitch! I never expected that you've really betrayed me, and you even brought a man into your room. Tell me, have you done it with him a very long time ago at this moment? Chun Yu was extremely furious. After all, even he hadn't entered Lu Wanner's bedroom. The middle-aged man was utterly stunned as well. Obviously, he'd never imagined that there would be another man in his daughter's room. Yang Yi walked slowly over to Lu Wanner, and then he helped her up. Right at this moment, a gust of wind assaulted Yang Yi from behind, and it caused him to frown. A ray of light shot out from the sword chest on his back, and a cry of pain resounded as Chun Yu's arm flew off into the air. H! My hand! My hand! Chun Yu roared with pain. The father and daughter pair of the Lu clan were stunned. Yang Yi paid no attention to Chun Yu. He placed his hand on Lu Wanner's swollen face, and then the violet profound energy within his body surged slightly as he said, You must realize that saying no to someone stronger than you requires strength to be accomplished. You'll suffer if you don't possess such strength, just like this very moment. Understand. Lu Wanner gazed at Yang Yi while a glow that had never appeared before in her eyes had suddenly appeared there. At this moment, she seemed to have understood something. H! Who exactly are you? Chun Yu looked at Yang Yi with horror. He wanted to run, but he felt an indescribable force lock onto him as soon as he'd aroused such a thought. He knew that he would immediately lose his life if he dared to run right now. Yang Yi withdrew his palm, turned around, and gazed at Chun Yu as he said, Didn't you want to look for me? Chun Yu was stunned, and then his expression changed drastically as he gazed at Yang Yi with astonishment and said, You're the Sword Emperor, Yang Yi. The middle-aged man's expression changed as well. The Sword Emperor, Yang Yi, is actually that strong. Besides your own sect, there are other sects who are coming after me? Asked Yang Yi. Ha ha! Do you think that I would tell you? You? Suddenly, Chun Yu's voice stopped abruptly because a huge hole had appeared on his chest, and a strand of sword intent instantly minced his internal organs into pieces. I only allowed you to live because I wanted to know something, but you refused to tell me. Then your life has no meaning anymore. Yang Yi shook his head, turned around, and walked towards the door. When he arrived at the door, Yang Yi suddenly stopped and gazed at Lu Wanner. He hesitated for a moment before he flicked his wrist and tossed a scroll towards her while he said, If you want to take control of your own fate, then you must possess formidable strength, otherwise, you'll always be at the mercy of others. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi grabbed Chun Yu's corpse and vanished from the room. Lu Wanner clenched tightly onto the scroll in her hand while she gazed at Yang Ye's back, and a strange glow that had never appeared in her eyes flashed through them. Yang Yi didn't know that a random decision he made would give birth to a new Sword Emperor a few dozen years later. Moreover, he'd never imagined that this future Sword Emperor would give him a huge headache. Killing Chun Yu and giving Lu Wanner a sword technique was merely a minor incident to Yang Yi. After he left the Lu clan and casually disposed of Chun Yu's body, Yang Yi withdrew the map, and he fell silent as he looked through it. He had to pass through at least 100 cities to arrive at the wild from where he was at. He had no doubt that endless slaughter would be awaiting him if he headed there along the fastest path. There were other ways to get to the wilds, but he would have to take a very large circle around, and it was a huge waste of time. Xianxia remained silent on the spot for a short while before he suddenly chuckled. And then the ninth hell sword wings flapped swiftly as he transformed into a black shadow that flashed towards the distance. He couldn't keep hiding. The only way to make others dare not target him was to kill to the point the world is overturned, kill to the point blood forms into rivers, kill to the point that no one in the world would dare to target him. Xianxia stopped at the entrance of Needless City because over 1,000 profounders were standing in front of him and gazing at him with fervent gazes. Xianxia glanced at them and noticed that there were 2 Exalt Realm experts amongst the found, and both of them were at the first rank of the Exalt Realm. The remaining profounders were mostly at the Spirit Realm or King Realm, and there were even some at the First Heaven Realm and even Mortal Realm. The ninth Hell Cold Gale. Looks like you're Xianxia. The Exalt Realm expert at the front of the ground laughed coldly as he gazed at Xianxia. Xianxia flipped his palm and Void Flash had been changed to Dragonbone. And then his figure flashed into the air while the profound energy within his body surged violently into Dragonbone. In the next moment, a wisp of a vicious expression flashed through Xianxia's eyes as he slashed swiftly towards the ground below. In an instant, countless threads of sword chi that were fine like the hairs on an ox rained down from the sky. Since they'd come to kill him, then it was pointless to waste his breath on them because it was impossible to make them let him go no matter what he said. Since that was the case, then the only choice he had was to kill. All of them were stunned when they saw Xianxia attack without saying a single word, and the dense rain of sword chi had arrived in front of them by the time they recovered from their shock. The 2 Exalt Realm experts and some comparatively stronger Spirit Realm profounders were fine as they were able to block the sword chi. However, the rest of the profounders didn't even have the opportunity to resist before they perished on the spot. However, that wasn't the end to the fine threads of sword chi. Wave after wave descended towards the crowd below, and a wave of sorrowful howls immediately resounded. It wasn't long before a few hundred corpses were lying before the entrance of the city, and fresh blood poured all over the ground. Meanwhile, the pearl of baleful blood which had remained inactive within Xianxia's body for a long time had suddenly flown out from within him. It was just like when he was at the Hidden Dragon Pagoda, the pearl of baleful blood started to go crazy absorbing the blood of those dead profounders. Xianxia paid no attention to the pearl as his gaze had descended onto those 2 Exalt Realm experts who led the group. Both of them were extremely shocked, and they gazed at Xianxia with fear. It was even to the extent that they actually forgot to attack because a few hundred members from their side had been killed in just an instant. Is this fellow really only at the 3rd rank of the Spirit Realm and not the 3rd rank of the Exalt Realm? Right at this moment, 2 rays of light flashed out from the sword chest on Xianxia's back, and then they shot forward like shooting stars towards one of those Exalt Realm experts. 2 Dao artifacts. The expression of that Exalt Realm expert changed drastically. Even though he was shocked in his heart, his reaction wasn't slow. He suddenly made a grasping motion towards the Dao artifacts with his right hand and executed the spatial cage technique. The sword stopped briefly but suddenly spun in the next moment, and the cage was instantly blasted into pieces. That Exalt Realm expert was horrified. He wanted to flee, but it was too late, and those 2 rays of light shot through his chest. The pearl of baleful blood instantly flew over to that Exalt Realm expert's corpse and swiftly started absorbing his blood. In less than a few breaths of time, that expert's corpse had shriveled up completely. Meanwhile, the other Exalt Realm expert recovered from his shock. He didn't attack Xianxia, and he turned around and flashed towards the distance instead. He was shocked to the extreme when he saw those 2 swords blast apart the other Exalt Realm expert's spatial cage, and it was also that exact same moment which he realized that staying behind would only lead to death. Which bastard said the Sword Emperor isn't formidable? Motherfucker. That lie almost killed me. That Exalt Realm expert roared furiously in his heart while he fled. Xianxia said in his heart while he watched that fellow flee. What a pity. If he went all out and utilized Void Flash, then it wouldn't be impossible for him to kill that fellow. However, it wasn't necessary. He had to preserve his strength now because he didn't know how many enemies were waiting for him on the path ahead. Yang Yi gestured and the pearl of baleful blood descended into his palm. In an instant, a strand of baleful and bloody energy assaulted his face. Yang Yi frowned because he realized that the pearl seemed to have become stronger as he'd been slightly dazed just now, and he might have been affected by it if he didn't possess the enlightened sword heart. The pearl had always been by his side. It practically never showed himself unless he carried out a crazy slaughter, and it was usually completely useless to him. It could be said to be the most useless treasures amongst all the treasures he possessed, even if it was a pseudo-Dao artifact. He'd heard from Xianxia that the pearl of baleful blood was a pseudo-Dao artifact that could grow. In other words, it was very likely that it required an enormous amount of blood and resentment in order to transform into a true Dao artifact. But exactly how much did it need? Clack, clack, clack. Right at this moment, the dense sound of horses trotting resounded from behind him. Yang Yi turned around and looked over. He saw a group of cavalries dashing madly towards him. There was around 500 of them, and the leader of the group was a man who held a spear in his hand and was a second-rank Exalt Realm expert. The rest of them were mostly at the King Realm. The group stopped around 30 m in front of Yang Yi, and all of their gazes locked onto Yang Yi, while the man who led the point pointed his spear at Yang Yi as he said, "You're the Sword Emperor, Yang Yi." "Yes," said Yang Yi while he madly absorbed the energy within the extreme-grade energy stone in the pocket near his chest. The man said, "The Mortal Emperor ordered that if you, Yang Yi, are willing to submit to the Mortal Emperor and hand over those treasures which the Mortal Emperor needs, then the Mortal Emperor is willing to spare you life and make you a Grand Commander of the Soul Eater Corps. Once the Southern Territory is subdued, the Mortal Emperor will further confer the title of Southern King to you. If you don't submit, then today will be the day of your death." "The Southern King?" Yang Yi laughed with ridicule. "How generous of him. The moment the Southern Territory is subdued will probably be the day that I die." Even though he wasn't someone that dabbled in politics, he understood the principle of how the bow would be made into firewood once all the game had been caught. Moreover, perhaps he would even die before the Southern Territory was even subdued, because even he wouldn't keep someone capable of threatening him by his side. "Looks like you're unwilling to submit." The man's gaze gradually turned icy cold. "You're right." Yang Yi suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground and relied on the counterforce to pounce forward like a cheetah and instantly arrive in the air above the man. After that, Dragonbone left a string of afterimages behind and emanated a dazzling glow as it slashed down towards the man. His expression changed a little, and he was just about to attack when a red glow suddenly enveloped him. Sword intent. The spear-wielding man's expression changed drastically. However, he'd still forcefully resisted the suppression of Yang Ye's sword intent and moved his spear horizontally to block Yang Ye's attack. Clang! The spear curved to the point it seemed like a bow, while the windbreaker horse beneath him was crushed to death on the spot while its limbs had sunk into the ground. Meanwhile, a ray of light suddenly shot out from the sword chest on Yang Ye's back, and it shot towards like a bolt of lightning towards the spear-wielding man. The latter's pupils constricted when he saw this, and he swiftly stomped on the corpse of the windbreaker horse and relied on the counterforce to retreat. At the same time, the spear in his hand swept swiftly towards the Dao artifact before him. Clang! The spear in his hand was slashed into two. The man's face turned gloomy while his figure flashed to the side, and he'd successfully prevented the sword from piercing a vital part of his body. It merely pierced through his shoulder. The spear-wielding man gazed at Yang Yi with shock. He hadn't expected that a third-rank spirit realm profounder would actually possess such formidable strength that almost killed him. He fully stopped underestimating Yang Yi, and he waved his right hand and ordered the cavalry in the surroundings to encircle Yang Yi at their center. A wisp of surprise flashed through Yang Ye's eyes because this fellow's strength was really not bad. It was much stronger than those two Exalt Realm experts from before. So, Yang Yi instantly had a decision when he thought of that. After all, wasn't he a good candidate to become a sword servant? Kill! Meanwhile, the spear-wielding man had ordered in a cold tone. Meanwhile, Yang Yi stomped the ground with his right foot and activated his sword domain, causing a formidable force to instantly envelop everyone within an area of 30 m around him. Everyone enveloped by it was horrified. A sword flashed out from the sword chest on Yang Ye's back, and then it transformed into a ray of light that flashed madly through the sword domain. When the ray of light dispersed, another 300+ corpses were lying on the ground. The spear-wielding man and the remaining profounders gazed at Yang Yi with astonishment, and their eyes were filled with terror. He killed over 300 King Realm profounders in an instant. Exactly what sort of monster is he? Ah! Suddenly, one of the cavalry shouted, turned around, and fled. After that, a second, a third. In just a short while, a few dozen had fled. However, they hadn't been able to flee successfully because the spear-wielding man had attacked and annihilated all who dared to flee. Those who flee before battle will be killed. The spear-wielding man pulled his spear out from the chest of a member of the cavalry before he gazed at Yang Yi. At this moment, Yang Yi vanished on the spot, and it caused his pupils to constrict violently, and then a sword pierced through his chest. The color in his eyes gradually vanished, and his eyes were filled with shock even until the moment he took his last breath. After Yang Yi killed the spear-wielding man with a single stab through the chest, the pearl of baleful blood flickered over to the spear-wielding man. It was just about to absorb his blood when Yang Yi slapped the pearl away and said, "That's not for you." As soon as he finished speaking, he placed the spear-wielding man's corpse in the space within the ancient sheath. After that, Yang Yi turned around and gazed at the 100+ cavalries that remained, and then a ruthless expression flashed through his light while a ray of light shot into the sky from his sword. In next to no time, over 100 fresh corpses were lying at the entrance to Needless City. On the other hand, the pearl of baleful blood suddenly emanated a wave of red light that enveloped Yang Yi when it finished absorbing the blood of the last cavalry. And then Yang Ye's expression changed drastically. An extremely terrifying strand of baleful energy and resentment charged into Yang Ye's mind, and the impact of it almost caused him to lose himself. Fortunately, he hurriedly protected his heart and mind at the critical moment, and only then was he able to prevent all of that. However, it wasn't great for him right now because the resentment and baleful energy was charging at his mind in waves. Bang! The 9th hell sword wings on Yang Ye's back flapped swiftly, and he transformed into a shadow that vanished at the horizon. Even though he was in a bad state, his mind was still slightly clear, and he knew that if he were to stay here while in such a state, then he would definitely die once someone arrived here. Bang! Yang Yi descended to the ground at an empty area, and the entire ground trembled violently. At this moment, Yang Ye's entire body emanated a slightly beautiful red glow. Moreover, his hair had become maroon as well. His current appearance was extremely shocking and strange. Bang! A red glow suddenly surged explosively from within Yang Yi, and the ground before it cracked apart, inch by inch. Yang Yi was delighted because he noticed that he could release the resentment and baleful energy from his mind in the same way that he released his sword intent. After that, Yang Yi released his slaughter sword intent like a madman, and then waves of seemingly material red light sprayed incessantly from within him. Wave after wave surged off into the surroundings, and it caused the entire area to be covered in destruction. Just like that, Yang Yi felt much better after he released the energy for around an hour. Yang Yi slowly opened his eyes, and then 2 red rays of light shot out from his eyes and struck the ground before him, causing 2 bottomless holes to appear instantaneously. Yang Yi was stunned on the spot. Yang Yi withdrew a mirror from his spatial ring, and he was stunned once more when he saw himself in the mirror. At this moment, his eyes were scarlet red like they had oceans of blood within them. Besides his pupils, his entire eyes were blood red in color. Moreover, his hair had become scarlet red now, and it seemed like it had been dyed with blood. It was extremely shocking, right? Where's the pearl of baleful blood? Yang Yi looked towards the surroundings yet didn't notice the pearl of baleful blood. Suddenly, he raised his hand and looked once more into the mirror, and then he was stunned again. A red-colored tattoo that was in the shape of a pearl had suddenly appeared at the center of his forehead, and it was exactly how the pearl of baleful blood looked like. A ray of light flashed as the sword spirit appeared by his side. Yang Yi gazed at her and said, "What's going on?" She fell silent for a while before she said, That pearl of baleful blood absorbed the blood of too many experts and attained intelligence of its own. It was probably trying to make you suffer backlash. As for its objective, it was naturally to take control of you. But it never imagined that you possessed the enlightened sword heart and had comprehended slaughter sword intent as well. So, the baleful energy and resentment within it wasn't much of a threat to you. Conversely, it even lost itself in the process and helped you improve your sword intent. It improved my sword intent? Yang Yi hurriedly utilized his sword intent, and then he was flabbergasted. Because there was no red glow, but he was able to sense that something seemed different around him. Meanwhile, the sword spirit suddenly said, "Stop quickly!" Yang Yi gazed at her, and he saw her frowning and displaying a very uncomfortable expression. Yang Yi hurriedly said, "You!" The sword spirit said after a while passed. "You're attained the 9th level of slaughter sword intent, and you've attained a level of incorporeal materiality. It means that your sword intent has fused into one with the heavens and the earth, so it doesn't have an actual shape yet, is material." When she spoke up to this point, the sword spirit glanced at Yang Yi with a strange expression on her face. Moreover, your sword intent can even absorb the sword intent and sword chi of sword cultivators who are weaker to you. In short, your current sword intent is entirely capable of suppressing Exalt Realm experts. Because your sword intent has fused with the heavens and the earth, so it's not simply an improvement of a single level. Besides that, the pearl of baleful blood has fused into one with you. In other words, you'll automatically absorb the blood of those you kill in the future to nurture your slaughter sword intent. So, I've never witnessed such a situation as yours in the past, and I don't know if it's good or bad. However, there's one thing that I'm sure of. You're a true sword demon from now on. A sword demon? Yang Yi laughed with indifference. He flicked the index finger on his right hand, and then a large tree that was over 100 m away was suddenly split into two. The smile on Yang Ye's face gradually vanished and was replaced by shock because he hadn't utilized any sword chi just now, and it was just a pure strand of sword intent. But he hadn't imagined that strand of sword intent would actually really be invisible and much faster than the sword chi he executed. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment before the sword chest behind him shook slightly. At the same time, a large tree that was over 100 m away was suddenly split apart. Yang Ye's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene, but in next to no time, an overjoyed expression appeared on his face. Because he noticed that a Dao artifact enveloped by his sword intent was actually invisible as well, and its speed had doubled at least. 9th level sword intent is actually that formidable. Right, it can even absorb the sword intent and sword chi of sword cultivators who are weaker to me? I definitely have to test it out if I have the chance. You're the most inconceivable amongst all the sword emperors of the past. Meanwhile, the sword spirit suddenly said, "Logically speaking, you shouldn't have been able to attain 9th level sword intent right now because you haven't attained the Exalt Realm and haven't comprehended the energy of the heavens and the earth. However, you just happen to have attained it. I'm unable to imagine to what extent you'll grow to in the future. That's a good thing, isn't it?" Yang Yi smiled. 9th level sword intent was undoubtedly like timely assistance to him, and it gave him a little more confidence towards facing the difficulties he would have to face in the near future. The sword spirit fell silent for a while before she asked, "Have you heard of the Heavenrend drawing technique?" Yang Yi was stunned and said, "Of course I have. It's a sword technique which was created by an elder of the sword sect. It helped me a great deal all those years ago. Unfortunately, my enemies grew stronger and stronger, and it wasn't able to be of much help to me any longer." "What about it?" The sword spirit said, "It wasn't created by an elder of the sword sect. It was the first sword emperor who created it. Later on, the unfettered one learned the technique and passed it down to the sword sect. It was created by the first sword emperor? Then why is it such trash?" Yang Yi was astounded. The sword spirit glanced at him and said, "The unfettered one almost slashed the heaven path into two with a single strike of that technique. You think it's trash?" Yang Yi didn't say anything, but his face was covered in doubt. What a joke. He admitted that the Heavenrend drawing technique wasn't bad, but he didn't believe it had almost slashed the heaven path into two. She said, The reason it became so weak wasn't because of the technique. It was mainly because all of you didn't have me. We didn't have you? Yang Yi was shocked. She said, "The first Sword Emperor created it with me as the foundation, and it's no different to an ordinary sword technique without me. But once you do have me, then it can really rend the heavens. Do you want to give it a try?" Yang Yi nodded without hesitation. She said, "Use Void Flash." As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed back into the ancient sheath. Yang Yi stretched out his hand and grabbed the ancient sheath before he placed Void Flash within it. In the next moment, Yang Yi suddenly drew his sword. After that, he was stunned, because he was actually unable to draw it. Yang Yi took a deep breath, and the profound energy within his body surged violently into the ancient sheath, and then he drew Void Flash forcefully again. However, Void Flash didn't move at all. Yang Ye's expression changed a little, and he hesitated slightly before he poured his sword intent into the ancient sheath as well. Void Flash finally moved slowly when both his profound energy and sword intent were surging into the ancient sheath. Yang Yi was delighted by this development, and he shouted as he suddenly drew Void Flash forcefully, and he drew it out halfway. It wasn't that he couldn't draw it out completely, it was because he'd suddenly stopped drawing it. The reason was that the sky had suddenly dimmed down while jet black clouds had appeared in the sky. Moreover, a few silver-colored bolts of lightning were flickering incessantly. Yang Yi was astounded. The weather actually changed just because I drew my sword? Moreover, Yang Yi faintly sensed that those bolts of lightning would strike down towards him if he were to continue drawing Void Flash from within the ancient sheath. Yes, he felt that those bolts of lightning had locked onto him. Should I draw it or not? Yang Yi shook his head and laughed bitterly. In the end, he didn't draw Void Flash, because just that moment of hesitation had caused the profound energy within his body to have been almost fully sucked away by the ancient sheath. Even though he could still draw Void Flash by force, it was meaningless. After all, it was truly unwise to exhaust all his profound energy just to witness the might of the Heavenrend drawing technique. If he was going to utilize that technique, then he definitely had to use it against an enemy. However, Yang Yi grew more and more curious towards this technique. Exactly how terrifying is its might? Even the heavens are afraid of it? Could it really rend the heavens? Yang Yi shook his head, and then his figure flashed towards the next city. Yang Yi didn't know that the news of what he'd done at Needless City had spread out at the same time. Have you heard? That Sword Emperor, Yang Yi, from the Southern Territory killed a few hundred in Needless City, and he even killed Exalt Realm experts. Moreover, the city governor and his cavalry perished at Yang Ye's hands. TSK. He can even kill Exalt Realm experts. What nonsense! He clearly killed a few thousand. I witnessed it with my own eyes. A few thousand Profounders were killed at the entrance of Needless City from a single swing of his sword. Moreover, there were a few dozen Exalt Realm experts amongst them. You're spouting nonsense as well. He didn't just kill a few thousand. I heard he slaughtered the entire city. At this moment, Needless City is covered in corpses and blood. Humph! A barbarian from the Southern Territory actually dares to kill without restraint at our Central Territory. Does he think there's no one capable here? Is anyone willing to go with me and kill that barbarian from the Southern Territory? We'll split the top-grade energy stones once he's dead. All right, let's go kill that demon and get rid of evil for the people. Meanwhile, the Exalted Han Empire released another piece of news. It was that the person who killed Yang Yi would be rewarded with 5,000 top-grade energy stones, 2 mid-grade heaven-rank techniques, 2 mid-grade heaven-rank dark treasures, and the position of city governor at a city with 1 million residents. After that, the Profounders of the Central Territory seethed once more with excitement, and they searched madly for Yang Yi. The wilds. Bairu, he's here in the Central Territory. The black-clothed woman spoke to Bairu within a room, and Bairu remained silent. The black-clothed woman continued. I really did underestimate his strength. Besides in Nanjing, there's probably no one amongst the younger generation who's a match for him. He'll definitely become a formidable enemy for Luo Jun if he isn't eliminated. And Bairu fell silent for a short while before she said, Has Luo Jun taken any action? The black-clothed woman said, He increased the bounty on Yang Yi. And Bairu said, What a scheme! If I'm not wrong, then the disciples of many clans and sects have gone after Yang Yi, right? The black-clothed woman nodded and said, All 3 ninth-rank sects, the Endless Sect, the Ascension Sect, and the Pure River Sect, have dispatched a huge group of inner court and elite disciples. Their objective should be Yang Yi. Besides that, the Mo clan of the 4 great clans has dispatched experts as well. However, the other 3 of the 4 great clans haven't shown any signs of movement. I'm very curious about why Luo Jun hasn't directly sent those old geezers at the Exalt realm from the exalted Han Empire and took such unnecessary actions instead. And Bairu laughed coldly and said, Because he wants to use Yang Yi to make the profounders of the Central Territory feel hatred towards the profounders of the Southern Territory. The tempting benefits he provided would definitely make the sects, clans, and independent cultivators of the Central Territory charge successively in pursuit of Yang Yi. It would naturally be a good thing for him if they killed Yang Yi, and if they couldn't, it wouldn't be harmful to him as well. Because if Yang Yi killed those fellows, then Yang Yi would definitely offend numerous powers. In that way, Luo Jun would have succeeded in creating conflict between the profounders of the Central Territory and Southern Territory. At that time, it would be much easier for him to subdue the Southern Territory. Create conflict between the profounders of both territories? The black-clothed woman frowned and said, Just that fellow Yang Yi doesn't have such ability, right? And Bairu said, Yang Ye's reputation in the Southern Territory has risen to its peak. He's the idol of the younger generation of the Southern Territory. Coupled with the support he receives from the Dark Beast Empire and Grand Qin Empire, he can be said to represent the entire Southern Territory. The people throughout the continent worship the strong. If Yang Yi crushes all opponents in the Central Territory, then his prestige in the hearts of the Southern Territory's cultivators would definitely rise explosively. Conversely, the profounders of the Central Territory would consider Yang Yi to be their mortal enemy, because Yang Yi is an outsider in their eyes. Is he not afraid that Yang Yi would grow too strong? Said the black-clothed woman. And Bairu said, Regardless of whether it's in Nanjing, Yang Yi, or Luo Jun, all of them are proud, especially Luo Jun. He holds the Mortal Emperor sword and has control of over 60% of the exalted Han Empire's forces. Moreover, he has successfully formed an alliance with those powerful sects. In his opinion, Yang Yi is just a clown. The black-clothed woman shook her head. She was once a peerless genius as well, but she felt that she was much more inferior to Yang Yi. If a person like Yang Yi was the enemy, then it was best to annihilate him before he'd grown completely. Otherwise, once he grew into another founding ancestor of the Sword Sect, then it would have been no different than courting death. She had no doubt that Luo Jun was courting death right now. And Bairu said, Luo Jun has probably never thought about how the reputation of his exalted Han Empire would definitely crash if Yang Yi survives and arrives here safely. Conversely, Yang Ye's reputation would improve greatly. However, he probably wouldn't care about it now even if he did realize it. After all, the world portrait and the inheritance of St. Lu Yun are the most important to him right now. Little girl, what exactly do you intend to do? I intend to stand on whichever side is beneficial to Mayan clan. Huntsman City. The sun burned brightly like a ball of flames, and it mercilessly roasted the path into Huntsman City. Noon was when the sun was the most merciless. The guards at the entrance of Huntsman City hadn't been able to bear the extremely hot weather a long time ago, and they'd hid themselves beneath the shade of the city wall. Normally, guarding the city entrance was a well-paying job to the guards because a huge amount of wealth would enter their pockets every single day. But now, guarding the city entrance was an unprofitable job, because no one was entering or leaving the city due to the weather. Since no one entered the city, the guards naturally weren't able to gain any profits. So, the 2 guards were very displeased right now. Damnable weather. Fuck. It's really trying to cook us alive. How strange. I'm at the king realm yet I'm actually unable to resist the scorching heat of the sun. Monkey, what do you think is wrong with the sun today? A robust man in armor whose face was covered in stubble spoke with extreme displeasure. Tui, a middle-aged man whose face was covered in hair, said, "We haven't gained anything for an entire day, and we're even suffering here like this. I'm going to go broke if this continues. Right, barbarian? Do you think Yang Yi will pass by this place? Hee, I heard the reward for his head is 5,000 top-grade energy stones, and some heaven-rank techniques and treasures. Moreover, it even comes with the position of city governor. TSK. Stop daydreaming. Is he even someone that you can kill? If he were to really pass through our city, then I think that you'll be the first to run." The robust middle-aged man glanced at Monkey as he spoke. Monkey intended to say something else when a young man suddenly appeared in the distance. Both of them were delighted by this scene. Monkey spat and said, "Someone is finally here. Haha." Yang Yi walked slowly towards the city gates. He wanted to fly, but he noticed that these cities had formations that restricted flight. If he were to forcefully fly through here, then it would be equivalent to telling everyone that he, Yang Yi, had arrived. Moreover, it was still quite difficult for him to overcome the formation with his current strength. It wasn't that it was impossible, but he needed a huge amount of time to accomplish it. Yang Yi was slightly puzzled. Why has this city activated its anti-flight formation? Could it have been done for me? Yang Yi walked towards the entrance with these questions in his mind. Something worth mentioning was that his hair had recovered its black color. Yang Yi had experimented quite a bit before he realized that unless he released his slaughter sword intent madly, otherwise, his hair wouldn't turn scarlet red. However, he felt that was good because red hair was truly too striking. Yang Yi suddenly stopped moving, and then he turned around to look behind him. He saw a woman walking over with a suckling infant in one arm, while her other hand was holding the hand of a young girl around the age of 8. Both of them were clothed in rags and covered in dust, and they were walking towards him. The woman was very young, her eyes were round and bright, and her figure was slender. However, her skin was very dark, rough, and covered in wrinkles. Besides that, her lips were dry while her hair was both disheveled and dirty. All of this made her seem old even though she wasn't. The young girl by the woman's side was extremely thin, and it wasn't excessive to describe her as being thin as a piece of bamboo. The woman held the child in her right arm while she held the young girl's hand in her left hand, and they were walking slowly in Yang Ye's direction. Yang Yi withdrew his gaze, turned around, and walked towards the city gates. 2 guards stopped him when he arrived there, and Monkey chuckled as he said, "Kid, do you know the rules?" Yang Yi asked, "What rules?" Monkey chuckled and said, "You have to pay a fee to enter the city." You look like a good kid. I'll take 2 energy stones." Yang Yi flicked his finger and 2 energy stones appeared in front of Monkey, and then he said, "Is that all right?" Both of them were stunned by this scene. He paid so readily? Monkey hastily put those energy stones away, and then he said, "Yes, go on in." Yang Yi nodded and walked towards the city gates. But he'd just taken a few steps when Monkey's voice resounded from behind him. "Hey, the 3 of you need to pay 2 energy stones each to enter the city. It's a total of 6 for the 3 of you." Yang Yi stopped moving. "Energy stones?" The woman gazed at Monkey and Barbarian with horror, and she said, I don't have any. Please let me in the city. My child hasn't had any water or food for an entire day." "You don't." Monkey's face fell as he said, "You want to enter the city when you don't have energy stones? Fuck off. Fuck off back to where you came from." Thump. The woman suddenly knelt on the ground and pleaded, "Big brothers, please be merciful and let us through. My child has really not had anything to eat or drink for an entire day. Please, big brothers, let us in the city. Please." As she spoke, she pulled the young girl's hand and said, "Child, quickly kowtow to these 2 uncles." The young girl knelt down just like her mother. But her knees had just touched the ground when a sharp cry resounded from her because the ground was too hot. She wanted to stand back up but was stopped by her mother. Bang! Suddenly, Monkey kicked the woman's stomach, causing her to instantly start rolling on the ground. Fortunately, she held tightly onto the baby in her arm, so it wasn't harmed at all. Monkey spat on the ground and said, "Beggars without energy stones can fuck off. Don't look for trouble with me." The young girl instantly burst into tears when she saw her mother being kicked away, and the child in the woman's arms started crying as well. The woman crawled up to her feet with great difficulty, and then she knelt before Monkey again and pleaded, "Big brother, please be merciful and let us in. We'll do anything we can to repay you in the future. Please, I beg you. Uncle, please." The young girl hurriedly started kowtowing with all her strength as well. "Monkey, I think you should let them in. Looks, if that woman were to be dressed up a little, she'll definitely look quite good. Moreover, that young girl might become a beauty when she grows up as well. If you let them in, then they'll definitely do anything they can to repay you. TSK, TSK. Just think about it, both mother and daughter serving a single husband." Ha ha ha. Barbarian laughed arrogantly and lustfully. "Fuck of bastard. Are such trash even worthy of me?" Monkey spat on the ground, raised his leg, and was just about to kick the woman. Right at this moment, Monkey noticed that his shoulder had been grabbed, and he turned around and gazed at Xianxia, who'd grabbed his shoulder, and said angrily, "Kid, what are you doing?" Meanwhile, Barbarian had withdrawn his spear and was looking at Xianxia with a hostile expression. Xianxia released his grip on Monkey's shoulder, withdrew 6 energy stones, tossed them to Monkey, and said, "I'll pay for them." Monkey was stunned, and then he hastily took those energy stones before he turned around to gaze at the mother and her 2 children. "You're lucky." The woman on the ground hurriedly walked over to Xianxia, and then she knelt down and spoke ceaselessly. "Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, benefactor." The young woman came over to Xianxia and wrapped her hands around his leg before doing exactly as her mother did. "Thank you, big brother." Xianxia was just about to speak when an unexpected change in the situation suddenly occurred. The woman who was kneeling in front of him had suddenly raised her head while she dropped the infant to the ground. Moreover, a dagger had appeared in her grasp. She was like a cheetah on the hunt that charged forward swiftly, while the dagger in her hand was like a cold glow that stabbed at Xianxia's throat. It was swift like a bolt of lightning. On the other hand, a dagger had suddenly appeared in the young girl's hand, and it stabbed straight towards his nether regions. Besides that, the pitiable expression in the young woman's eyes had vanished, and it was replaced by an icy cold and firm expression. Meanwhile, Monkey and Barbarian had attacked as well. One stabbed his spear straight towards the center of Xianxia's brows, while the other smashed his fist at Xianxia's head.